Career conversations. So let's talk about career conversations. Very similar or also known as informational interviews. I like to think that career conversations don't have an obligation around them. Oftentimes, I think informational interviews have this obligation of either referring you to a job or providing you an opportunity. Makes us really nervous having these informational interviews. So I feel like career conversations is a better term to use so that it feels more like I'm just doing research. I'm crowdsourcing information. Today, we're going to talk about networking tips, career conversations, of course, also known as informational interviews. Okay, networking. These stats still hold true, but I do think it's important that people know building a stronger, more meaningful business relationship is always going to be the way always going to be the way that you get a job. When you build the relationship, whether it's with the recruiter, the hiring manager, the staff, or you're building a relationship outside of the organization to get your foot in the door, it's really important that you are networking, creating those relationships throughout your industry, thinking about how to make sure that you have people in your corner when you need them sooner than later, right? And so we want to make sure that all of the opportunities that we have to here on campus and that we here at in the careers team provide is, getting to know our alum, making those connections with the alum when they're here for panels or office hours, or if you're able to go on outreach trips. These are really great opportunities where you can start building these networking skills and also start building those relationships so that you can have a better idea of the industry that you're going to be going into and also know more people in that industry. So one of the things I think is really important is to have a goal in mind when we're approaching networking. I think it's really important that we are giving something as well as taking something, right? But to have the goal in mind, what I mean by that is if we're going into a networking situation and we're just trying to crowdsource information, we also want to be able to give back if possible. Is there any way that I can connect you with anyone in my network, or maybe write a recommendation on your LinkedIn for helping me? It's always really important to kind of have that how can I help, how can I be of service mentality when we're approaching a networking conversation. And also, what is it that we want to take away from it? What are we trying to learn? And then really thinking about how you can add value to the conversation. When we are setting up these career conversations, I do think it's important that we either reach out to people on email if we're, if we don't know them. Maybe we have to reach out to them through LinkedIn. I do think it's really important that we have some email etiquette wrapped around our conversation so that we make sure that we are being professional when we set up these conversations. When it's important that you're greeting a person with proper titles, dear first name, always err on the side of formality, making sure that you're checking your spelling and your tone. Do I use AI for my email etiquette? Possibly, but I will tell you that if it doesn't sound authentic and it sounds AI generated and it sounds robotic, you're less likely going to get a response or have anyone that's going to want to talk to you. So if you can make it really specific about an opportunity, a time that you met, or maybe it's, I didn't meet you. Maybe it's Laura told me all about you. I'd love to talk with you more. Instead of like, oh, hello, we met last night, wanted to continue our career conversation. I do think it's just really important in the subject line to give a little bit of reference instead of saying, referred by Laura. Maybe Laura asked that I reach out to you. Give them a little bit more context. And then also always use your email signature and your sign off You do have an opportunity to market yourself as a GPS uh, student and as a graduate student. And we have the signature images for you in the resource library. Some of the things I think are really important, scheduling networking time on your calendar. I will tell you, I always ask these like super connectors, people who, they just are connected to a lot of people. You might find people in this cohort that happen to know everyone in the cohort, and they just get it. They're just really good at remembering people's names, remembering pieces of conversation. But what I will tell you about all the connectors that I've ever met, I do always ask them what helps them stay connected and what helps them with becoming a super connector. And they all say the same thing. They have a system in place. They put networking on Fridays or Mondays or once a month or whenever it is, they have a system and they put it in place, and it is non-negotiable. That is what they do on that day at that time, whether it's reaching out to one person or reaching out to 20 people. They schedule it on the calendar and make sure that it's something that's a system that's very repeatable. I would say, making sure that you are outlining information, always following up with a thank you, any kind of action or call to action that you may have had in that conversation. And then also, just staying in touch with people that have helped you along the way is also networking. And it's a really, really, really great way to be gracious and thankful for other people who have helped you out. So if you had recommendations even to get into this program, always giving, those recommendations an update of how you're doing. How is your first few months? How is your holidays going? How is the next quarter looking? Staying in conversation with people who have helped you along the way is really important, because at the other end of this, when you graduate, those people will likely be the people who help you get a job or kind of launch your career. Here's some examples of um, how you can set up even a cold email if you don't happen to have um, if you don't happen to know those people. You might be able to reach out to them through LinkedIn, or maybe you can use one of our email finders to find their email so you can be at the top of their inbox. This is just an example of one of those cold emails. There's lots of examples in the resource library under outreach strategy. When to write a thank you note. I'm going to tell you always, 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 always write a thank you note after networking. Always write a thank you note after a career conversation or an informational interview. Within 24 hours after you have an interview, and especially, to all the people that were involved, including the recruiter who set up the call, that's huge. They will remember you. And believe it or not, when you send a thank you, even if you were, um, uh, rejected, if you didn't get the position, you could always, write a quick little like, thank you so much for the interview process. I hope that who you ended up hiring does amazing things and brings so much value to the organization. I'd love to stay connected with you for future opportunities. Things to take away. I really think it's important that you need to be aware of your audience and who's receiving your messages, whether it be on LinkedIn or a thank you note. I think it's important, like, that you're using professionalism as a default, but also making sure that you're being authentic and kind, and it goes a long way. A little bit of kindness will go a long way, and you will be remembered. So staying in touch and thanking those who have helped you along the way is super important, but also knowing that every interaction that you're going to have from here forward is going to count. And it could lead you to opening up a door in a different direction. And I think it's really important that, we treat all of the interactions with as much professionalism as you know as you can, in even if you've gotten to a more casual um, relationship with some of your alumni. I always think that you, in a thank you note or thinking about how you would want to leave a note behind, I still would want it to be as professional as possible. I know some of you end up texting, but when in doubt, always send an email. When we're reaching out to email alum through email, I do think it's really important that they understand a little bit about who you are, not just your program, but why you're reaching out and what you're hoping to discuss. And then you're steering the conversation by making sure that you're giving them some specific blocks of time that you will be available. If you happen to have a Zoom account, or you can provide them a link, that could be really helpful as well. Or if you happen to have some kind of a calendar, and then if you are talking about a specific position that may be on that website of the alumni's organization, it's really great to bring that to their attention. But alumni aren't just there for referrals. Alumni are there for career conversations, getting an understanding of what it might be like in their department, what obstacles that they have experienced, what skills that they gained during GPS that have really helped them throughout their career. I think it's really important to ask specifically to the alum who have been in your track, how they have utilized those skills or how they've been able to leverage those skills for different conversations throughout their industry. So pay attention to what the alumni tell you when you do meet them, because they always have really like great nuggets of information. They're just little gold nuggets that they leave behind. And I will tell you, a lot of them will say they got their jobs from networking. We'll have maybe one a year that will say that it was like a cold application online. But I would say 99% of the people that you are going to encounter and alumni you're going to encounter here in the next few years are going to tell you um, that they got their positions through some kind of referral or somebody that knew somebody. So remember that. Okay, things to think about from a technique. Being really clear that we're not asking for a job. No one, if you come out of the gate saying, "Hey, can you get me a job?" or "Hey, can you get me a referral?" it's not going to feel really good to the person on the other end. So I do think it's really important that you learn how to facilitate the conversation so you can gather as much information as possible. One way I think to have the ask of either for a job or for a referral without coming out and like, can you help me navigate the interview process or the application process? Do you have any information that would be helpful for me to navigate the application process? Could be a way to see what kind of information they are able to give you. the I do think the meetings like should be 80% of it. The meetings that you schedule with any of our alum, or anywhere that for that matter, should be 80% should be about them and 20% about you. And I do think it's important that you are following up on a regular basis. So if you take anything away from this conversation, I do think it's important that you're thoughtful about how you schedule these meetings. You're have an intention of what you're hoping to get out of the meeting. You're asking really good questions, and then you're following through and you're following up. And here is a quick little video to watch. as you can see, there's a good way to conduct an informational interview or career conversation and the wrong way. I think you got an idea of how important it is to be professional, to prepare, and to make the most out of the time, to be considerate, and to be very grateful. Thank you.